look at the Chargers as the one team outside of Tyrod Taylor that has like a true opening. Patriots, you could argue that. You could say Jacksonville, maybe, and even Denver, not locked into a franchise guy perhaps. But really, when you look at Cam Newton's situation, it is unfortunate given the restrictions across the NFL on the ability for teams to do physicals on guys like Cam Newton. I think this is going to take a long time before he locks up a deal. Same thing for Jameis Winston. Again, this is a really tough spot, not from the physical side of things that Cam Newton's facing with a physical, but instead I talked to one general manager of a QB-needy team who really doesn't feel like he'd be very comfortable signing a guy like Winston unless he could sit down with him, look him into his eyes, and decide whether he's right for their locker room. Tough situation all around until there's a little bit of stability here. I don't know if this gets done. Jadeveon Clowney sound like a broken record. He doesn't love the money that's out there, and part of that is the fact that teams can't look at his health to decide whether he is in fact worth a massive investment. We're talking about high-dollar guys, not guys you can just take a flyer on. With Clowney, I could see it being a very good fit for him going back to Seattle, where he was this past season, maybe doing a one-year deal, saying, I'll go into free agency next year. We'll call this a wash and try things again.
All right, we'll see what happens there. And, you know, despite the pressure he puts on the offense, Clowney has never reached double-digit sack totals in any of his 6 seasons. Amazing to think about. Jeff, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, coming up, PTI guys going to be back with us talking about Roger Goodell's demands to the league about the NFL draft. That's coming up.
Well, hello there. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take on this Friday. Thank you for hanging with us. I'm Molly Karam Rose with my guys, Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Richard Jefferson. Carson Wentz should have a bone to pick in Philly. The Eagles GM Howie Roseman discussing why Philly ultimately passed on DeAndre Hopkins.
I get that this is a hot-button topic for us.
The Eagles didn't make the move based on what the Texans were asking for and what Hopkins wanted in a new contract.
It's not always apples to apples, and I'm not saying that as an excuse. There's a lot that goes into it, and we're not always in control of the results on that.
I know who is happy right now, and that would be Kyler Murray, because he's got Hopkins.
That was earlier today. Stephen A. Smith, of course, part of First Take. The beauty of it is they often have a lot to say. If you didn't hear it this morning, chance now to revisit it. It feels like, Stephen A., that the GM is kind of putting his hat on a lot of guys getting healthy. Hope is not a plan. So what do you make of the Eagles deciding not to go hard after Hopkins?
Foolishness, stupidity. Those are the 2 words that come to my mind. You're talking about a future Hall of Famer, an all-world receiver, widely recognized as having the best hands in football. And if you're the Eagles franchise and you're looking at DeAndre Hopkins, what are your alternatives? Well, let's see. Nelson Aguilar, he missed about 5 games in his last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. Alshon Jeffrey, he missed about 6 games. Deshaun Jackson, your best deep threat, he missed about 13 games. Carson Wentz went out there and had to rely upon a guy by the name of Miles Sanders as his 3rd receiver behind the 2 tight ends that he had available to him in Zach Ertz and Goddard. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. If you have an opportunity to get DeAndre Hopkins, now if Houston was asking for the kitchen sink, that would be different. And maybe that's what Howie Roseman was alluding to when he talked about apples to apples. But the reality is DeAndre Hopkins is a member of the Arizona Cardinals right now, having given him up to the Texans, having given him up without getting a first-round pick in return. Look at what the Cleveland Browns got for Odell Beckham Jr. Look at DeAndre Hopkins, juxtapose that to DeAndre Hopkins landing in Arizona. And you've got to wonder what the hell was Bill O'Brien thinking. And in this case, Howie Roseman, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, what were you thinking of not being able to get him if the Arizona Cardinals could get him for that cheap price?
Get Johnson and a 2nd-round pick. All right, switching gears, so I want your opinion on this. Another wideout, and after the Bucs signed Brady, there's this opinion out there that wherever Tom went, he was somehow going to take Antonio Brown with him. Last night, Bucs head coach Bruce Arians reminded us Brady quarterbacks the team. He doesn't run it.
What's the likelihood AB gets back in Tampa?
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
There you go.
It's not going to happen. There's no room.
Yeah.
And probably not enough money, but it's just not going to happen. It's not a fit here.
If he says, I'm coming in on the veteran minimum, coach, I just want to play with Tom, you still wouldn't find a way to get him in?
No.
Is it just because you don't trust what he could do to the culture? Why so steadfast that you would not give it a chance?
Yeah, I just know him, and it's not a fit in our locker room.
Interesting dynamic, the Brady-Brown thing. What do you think this means for the wideout and what the statement that Arians is making?
I think his NFL career is in grave jeopardy, and I think it should be. We all know what an all-world receiver Antonio Brown is. 6 consecutive years, he had a minimum of 101 receptions for a minimum of 1,284 yards. He's all-world, future Hall of Fame caliber. The problem is he's been a head case, and he can't be trusted. Bruce Arians was his offensive coordinator his first 2 years in the NFL in Pittsburgh. After that, he threw Ben Roethlisberger under the bus. He threw Juju Smith-Schuster under the bus. One could argue as a result of Mike Tomlin being the head coach, you threw him under the bus. You end up going to Oakland. You call Mike Mayock, the GM, out of his name in front of a bunch of people. You stand up John Gruden when you were supposed to meet with him. Then he gets on the phone with you via his agent, your agent rather, Drew Rosenhaus, and you secretly tape their phone calls. You're on social media acting like an absolute fool, and then you go to New England, and after you end up getting pushed out of there because they told you to shut the hell up, and you couldn't do it. You couldn't stay off social media, attacking the very woman on social media that they told you to stay away from because she accused you of some things. You then call out owner Robert Kraft. I'll give him credit for this. He wasn't discriminatory in any way. He's called out owners, coaches, teammates, players, everybody. And even your agent, Drew Rosenhaus, went on the record after publicizing the fact that he was severing ties with you. He said, what am I supposed to do? I got to watch myself because this man might take my phone calls. Nowhere you can turn to can Antonio Brown be trusted. How can you allow that in your locker room? If you can't be trusted, how can the team make you a part of the team?
Not to mention the 2 great receivers they have there. Thank you very much, Stephen A. 10 a.m. Eastern Time, of course, on First Take. And that sound we heard from Bruce Arians, Tiki and Turney, they provided that, ESPN.
And back to the NFL draft, NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell sent a memo to teams last night saying in part that he recognizes the uncertainty surrounding public health, but that there's no assurance a different date with significantly better conditions can be secured. He added, quote, I also believe that the draft can serve a very positive purpose for our clubs, our fans, and the country at large, and many of you have agreed. He went on to say that any public discussion of draft-related issues serves no useful purpose, and it's grounds for disciplinary action. Good thing we won't be disciplined for talking to NFL front office insider Louis Riddick about this very issue. He joined SportsCenter Live with more on the draft. Lou, what is your reaction to that memo?
Well, it's really not a shock considering that the NFL up until this point has really conducted things as business as usual. And if you go off of what they have done so far and how things have been conducted so far as the start of the new league year and how free agency has begun without a hiccup, quite honestly, with obviously some tweaks as to what you can and cannot do as far as bringing players in, then you shouldn't be shocked. And I think general managers and personnel directors and head coaches in their scouting departments and coaching staffs need to prepare as such, and they are preparing as such. So I really don't think they're that shocked, to be quite honest with you, based on what they've done in the past.
Okay, and then speaking of preparation, the draft is not going to have fans in attendance in Vegas. Roger Goodell's told teams they need to prepare to participate from outside team facilities with fewer people. So with this being different from any other draft, who do you think teams will lean on for information?
Yeah, they're going to really, Ryan, they're going to really lean on their scouting department overall, the guys who were the boots on the ground in the summer and in the fall. And then in the winter, in January, at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, the scouts, the scouting directors, the college scouting directors, the pro scouting directors, they're going to lean on those guys who have seen these players the most, who have done the background work at the schools during the fall, who really have laid eyes on them. Because right now, you know, late in this process, as is usually the case where coaches come into it and coaches hit the road and they go to these respective schools and work these guys out and or go to some other location and put them through private workouts, and then you bring them in for top 30 visits and have another crack at them as far as assessing their character and their physical abilities at that point in time and what their availability is going to be from an injury perspective. You don't have all of that. So I think once you get to draft day and it's at a different location, you're going to have to make sure that everyone is on the same page, and the people who know the most are the people who are in that room, because you won't be able to rely on a lot of the sources that you used to.
Yeah, and I guess all teams will be in that situation, though some teams are claiming they're worse off than others. So with team facilities shut down, travel restricted in some places, properly evaluating somebody like Tua Tagovailoa's status is more difficult than in a typical year. So what would your strategy be if you're a team that's interested in drafting him?
Yeah, he's going to be a very, very tricky one because the number one thing that primary decision makers are charged with is minimizing risk to the club. Well, how do you minimize the risk of being wrong on Tua from a health perspective if you can't bring him into your facility and have your doctors and your trainers look at him? I don't know how you can adequately do that to the point where you feel comfortable taking him where he's projected to go. Look, quite honestly, some of this is going to really just be about going on a hunch, using all available information that you have available to you up to this point, and really just taking a flyer on it. And I know that sounds a little bit ridiculous when you're talking about guys who are top 3, 4, 5 picks overall in the draft. But if everybody's working with the same set of circumstances, that's really what it's going to come down to. And the strongest personnel departments, the strongest scouting staffs are going to have to excel. That's really the only thing they can rely on.
I'll tell you what, hunch, flyer, those are words GMs don't like to think about. Tua, by the way, has been medically cleared for all football activity.